Hey guys, I've got a pretty important video here to show you that has to do with the planet Mercury and mercurial years, and hopefully I can do this information justice. It's a pretty important, pretty neat video, and I'm going to be showing some information that Bobby Simpson and I have been talking about. He showed me that our current presidents and Vice President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they were born exactly 91 Mercury years apart, and there's some other presidential connections to Mercury that I'm going to show you here. And so give credit to Bobby for figuring out some of this Mercury stuff here with JFK and Joe Biden. And we're going to start out here. We're going to take a look at the JFK assassination, and it's going to give us a kind of a context to why Mercury is so important when we look at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. If we look at JFK, he was born on May 29th, 1917, died 11/22/63, and so that was, between his birth and his death, was 16,978 days. So we have his birthday here, and the day of the assassination, 16,978 days. And a Mercury year is 87.969 days. So he died on his 193rd Mercury birthday within a few hours. I mean, it's so close, but 193. And what's interesting about his assassination, I'd say very, very interesting. Here we have a shot of Dealey Plaza, right? Dealey Plaza, here's Elm Street, and actually if we zoom in here, the road by the grassy knoll actually has an X on the road where he was assassinated. And when we overlay the Sephiroth onto Dealey Plaza, and then we look at the path of the motorcade, we have the presidential motorcade come here, and then it took its last left turn before it went down Elm Street, and he was shot right about here. But his last turn was made on the position of Mercury on the Sephiroth, position 8. The Mercury position was his last turn before he was shot, so he was assassinated on his 193rd Mercury birthday, right after passing through the Mercury Sephiroth on Elm Street here. And what's interesting here, I'll have to look more into this, but I see here this path that Elm Street kind of represents here has tooth, and of course one of the a suffix for tooth is dent, right? And we have Biden, like bident, Biden. A bident would be a fork with two forks on it, and a trident has 3. So we have this tooth connection kind of connected to bident. And you'll see how that works exactly here with the Mercury birthdays. But JFK died on his 193rd Mercury birthday, right after he passed through the Mercury Sephiroth, position 8. And that just happens to be the 44th prime number, so here's our Mercury year. Like I said, 87.969 days. Mercury is the god of financial gain, commerce, eloquence, messages, right? Mercury, Hermes, is the messenger god. He bridges the gap between the physical and spiritual realm. So it makes sense that we would look at Mercury for the messengers, for the messages, right? And apparently there's a lot of them here with these presidential connections. And there's also a Venus connection with Kamala Harris. I did during the election a few years ago, I did a video here called Biden-Harris, the ex-presidents, and Kamala Matika, Lotus, goddess of delight. In the Mahadavi, Kamala is Lakshmi. Lakshmi equals Venus. So Kamala, she has an Indian heritage, like Hindu Indian, and So Kamala would be equivalent to Venus, and she has a connection here with Joe Biden as well, and Mercury and Venus. So Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, connected by Mercury and Venus, the two interior planets, right? We're told that there are the two interior planets between the Earth and the Sun, Mercury being the fastest. So we just talked about JFK. Just want to show you real quick some of the maybe predictive programming or symbolism, probably with the most famous representation or archetype of Mercury would be the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Right, the DeLorean has its gull wing doors, and Mercury has its winged feet, and it takes 88 miles per hour to travel through time in the DeLorean, and the mercurial year is 88 days. And another unique feature that kind of separates the DeLorean from other vehicles and makes the connection with Mercury is the DeLorean is a stainless steel body. There's no paint on here. It's all stainless steel exterior, kind of like we're told Mercury is a completely barren, right, gray planet. It's barren because it's, closest to the sun. It's super hot. Just a barren gray planet, just like we have a barren, non-painted stainless steel gull wing door DeLorean. So Mercury and the DeLorean, if you make that connection, kind of opens up a whole new context for the decoding of Back to the Future. And we'll get more to that later. We get some pretty neat stuff that I found already with Mercury and the DeLorean. But, and then even in Back to the Future, the original one, right after Marty gets hit with the car and he wakes up, he's eating dinner with the Baines, right? That's a block past Maple, John F. Kennedy Drive. He even mentions John F. Kennedy in Back to the Future, right? John F. Kennedy, of course. We just learned that he died on his 193rd Mercury birthday. But Mercury, the god of financial gain, in Back to the Future Part 2, remember Biff, he steals the DeLorean and goes back in time to give himself the almanac so he can have a financial gain, right? So he can win all the money on the horse races. So there's another pretty solid connection there with the DeLorean representing Mercury. But just want to show you guys that as far as, Mercury and our predictive programming or symbolism in the movies, that's probably the most, it's probably the best representation. So, and then we have the John F. Kennedy connection too, to kind of show you guys. And there's there's a lot of very good videos, great information, well produced that show all the 9/11 connections with Back to the Future. And there's a really cool one that I want to show you that kind of has to do with Mercury, and we'll do that later. But just want to show you guys the connection there with Mercury and the DeLorean and JFK. And JFK, right? He was riding in the Lincoln. He's currently the last president to be assassinated, and the first president to be assassinated was Abraham Lincoln, right? So we have Kamala Harris, synonymous with Venus, right? Her archetype, her representation would be Venus, and she's from California. California is the 31st state, and when you divide 31 into 50, for the 50 states, it's the closest approximation of phi. These are a couple screenshots. I did a video on that, but California. So she has another connection to Venus because Venus, which I've talked about many, many times, Venus inferior conjunctions with the sun form the pentagram or rose of Venus, and the Venus pentagram, the intersecting lines form the golden ratio. So all kinds of connections with Kamala and Venus. And then we have the Mercury connection I'll show you here. So our Mercury connection, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were born exactly 91 Mercury years apart. Again, thanks to Bobby Simpson for that. And we'll just take a look real quick. We'll do the math for you guys just to show you exactly. So we had Joe Biden, oops, 11/20/1942, 10/20/1964, 8,005 days, 1,005 divided by 87.969, 91 Mercury years, again just within literally hours, 997. So exactly 91 Mercury years apart between Joe Biden. And what's interesting is, coming up on 10/23, just 3 days after Kamala's birthday, 10/23, October 23rd, 2023, a few months here, we're going to have Joe Biden have a Mercury birthday. Joe Biden's going to turn 336 Mercury years old on 10/23/2023. And Kamala Harris, she's going to have a Mercury birthday as well. She's going to turn 245 Mercury years old on 10/23. So not only are they born exactly 91 Mercury years apart, 91 just happens to be the 13th triangular number. Anyways, October 23rd, 2023, they're also going to share their 336th and 245th mercurial birthdays coming up on October 23rd, 2023. And something interesting, the Venus connection here for Kamala, she was nominated as vice president on 8/11/2020. And I'll just show you this real quick. I'll probably leave a link for you guys, but I'm not going to explain it a whole lot. So this little diagram here, okay, so if this is our view from Earth, and if this is Venus and the Sun, this would be considered an inferior conjunction. When there's a conjunction of Venus and the Sun, when it's between the Earth and the Sun, that's inferior, and that makes our pentagram points, right? I've talked about the pentagram points a whole bunch, the pentagram count. And real quick, coming up on August 13th, we're having a completion of a Venus pentagram on August 13th, 2023. And it's actually the 13/8 or 8/13 ratio that forms the pentagram of Venus, and it just happens to be on August or 8/13, so that's kind of neat. But the connection with Kamala is that she was nominated for vice president on 8/11/2020. And if we look at Venus, Venus has a maximum elongation of 47 degrees. Between 45 and 47 is considered maximum elongation for Venus. And she was nominated on a day with maximum elongation. And this little diagram also shows and explains our greatest elongation. And at that time on 8/11, Venus was a morning star. It was visible in the morning and above the horizon after sunset, or before sunrise, I mean. And so if you want to read this real quick, basically elongation is the maximum angular distance from the Sun, and the maximum for Venus is 47, and for Mercury is 28. So she was nominated on this maximum elongation day, and then coming up on her Mercury birthday, Biden and Kamala Harris's Mercury birthday on 10/23, Venus will once again be at its maximum elongation. So kind of an interesting, there's a lot of connections here on this day with the Venus elongation, greatest elongation, and the Mercury birthdays being shared by both Biden and Kamala. So that's pretty interesting stuff. And then just want to show you guys this as well. Yesterday, on the 16th, was the 78th anniversary of the Trinity test, and we had another connection to Mercury here. This actress, Jane Birkin, she was famous actress and singer, but she also is famous for making the Hermes bag, right? Hermes, synonymous with Mercury. She died yesterday on the anniversary of the Trinity test, and it was her 318th mercurial birthday. And we'll just do the math here real quick. If we count the end date, she was born on 12/14/46, died on 7/16/23, and that's 27,974 total days. So we're counting the last day. And so she was 318 Mercury years old when she died, and she was famous for the Mercury, or the Hermes bag, Hermes Mercury. So very fitting that we had a connection there with Mercury and her death. And what's interesting about her birthday, she was born on December 14th, 1946. So her 74th birthday fell on the exact halfway point between the Great American Eclipses. So here's our two eclipses that form the Great American Eclipse, the August 21st, 2017 eclipse, and the April 8th, 2024 eclipse that make the X over Carbondale, Illinois. She celebrated her 74th birthday on the exact halfway point between these eclipses. And that day there was actually an eclipse over Argentina. And I showed you guys this in my last video, but coming up on October 14th, so just like, 9 days before the Mercury birthdays of Kamala and Joe, we have this X being formed over Uvalde, Texas. And remember last fall Uvalde had the shooting, but this annular eclipse will enter the United States over the 33rd state, Oregon, and will exit precisely over Corpus Christi, Texas. And Corpus Christi literally means body of Christ. And this death yesterday, right, 318 Mercury years old, there's 318 references to the return of Jesus in the Bible. And then if we look at this little riddle here, there's a Jesus in the Greek isopsophy, sums to 888. Helios sums to 318 in the Greek gematria, Greek isopsophy. And then there's this little riddle with the 318 unit sized circles inside of a large circle that kind of make this connection between the 318 and 888. You can go through this little riddle yourself if you want. Then of course October, Oct is 8. The Mercury position on the Sephirot is 8, and the 8th month, of course, on the Roman calendar was October, so there's our Oct connection, and here's our Latin and Greek here for all the numbers of the months: October, November, December, September, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, but you can go through this, but there's a connection with Jesus and the gematria between, or isopsophy between 318 and 888 with this little puzzle here. And let's see what else here. Right, when I did these videos back during the election, I was doing them in the context of the two eclipses. Right, Biden wears his dark glasses, his dark aviators. To me, kind of represented the two total solar eclipses. And then the last video I did, I talked about the eclipses and the connection to DNA and chromosomes. 2 X chromosomes. Your mother and father both give you 23 pairs of chromosomes, and that forms the complete DNA of 46 pairs of chromosomes. And then the 23rd pair determines sex, and the XX is a female, right? So we have all this female symbolism. Of course, we have the female vice president connected to the eclipses, connected to Joe Biden, the Mercury birthdays. Let's see if I'm forgetting anything else here. There's a lot more number stuff to go through here with this Jane Birkin. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention here too. Jane Birkin kind of has the same initials as Joe Biden, right? Jane Birkin, Joe Biden, and her middle name is Mallory. Kind of reminds me of mallard, like a duck. And Joe Biden's middle name is Robinette, like robin, like a bird. And actually, this Mallory was the character in the Bird Box, right? Mallory, the Bird Box, and you have the bird connection with Robinette Biden, Joseph Robinette Biden. So that's kind of interesting as well. And then, what else here? I'm forgetting one other thing here. Well, I can't remember right off the top of my head right now, but yep, just want to show you guys the connection with JFK. Oh, here's what I wanted to mention real quick. Our first president that was assassinated, Abraham Lincoln, there was a Venus maximum elongation on 2/25/1865. We had a maximum elongation of Venus. He was inaugurated on 3/4. So 7 days later, he was inaugurated after this maximum elongation. But he was assassinated on 4/14. So he was assassinated 48 days after a maximum elongation. And just for fun, I kind of looked up what 48 days after 10/23/2023 is. And I think it's 12/10. Yeah, 48 days after the maximum elongation is 12/10/2023. That happens to be 1,054 days into the presidency of Joe Biden, and 1,054 is the total number of nuclear tests performed by the United States. So there's a kind of an interesting connection there, a nuclear connection, right? And we just had the actress here die on the anniversary of the Trinity test. Like I said, there's more number connections to be made. There's more symbolism connections, but just trying to keep this as short as possible. Looks like we're at 23 minutes about here. So I'm gonna wrap this up, and there's a lot more to show you, but thanks for watching.